You should put on a straw hat, Sergei laughed as he adjusted his jacket in the mirror, barely glancing at his wife. I could stand you by the gate like a scarecrow. And when the boss comes, promotion is mine. Perfect picture. The hard-working man and his quiet wife in the countryside. He chuckled at his own joke, the way he always did. To him, it was harmless, just words thrown into the air. But to Anna, every syllable carried weight. She smiled faintly so he wouldn't see the sting, but inside her chest it ached. Over the years, she had learned to hide that pain well, burying it under silence. Anna had grown used to his humor. Sharp, careless, often dismissive. When they had first married, she thought it was part of his charm, that playful sarcasm. But time had stripped the shine away, leaving only barbs that dug deeper with each passing year. She wanted to say something back, to defend herself, to remind him she wasn't a decoration at the gate. But then she thought of their son, of the fragile peace of their household, and as always she swallowed the words before they reached her lips. Instead, she packed the bag. Bread, tomatoes, some herbs, the jar of pickles her mother had made, all the quiet details of a woman's care. Her hands moved out of habit, but her heart wasn't in it. She tied the bag shut, put on her old cardigan, and followed him out to the car. The road to the countryside was familiar, winding past endless birch trees, past little villages where smoke curled from chimneys. Normally, Anna loved these trips. Nature soothed her in ways city life couldn't. But today, even the smell of pine and fresh earth couldn't lift the heaviness she carried. When they arrived at the dacha, Sergei immediately went into planning mode. He barked instructions, half to her, half to himself. We'll set the table here, the grill there. Don't forget to put out the plates. The boss loves order. And don't talk too much. He's not here for small talk. Anna nodded quietly. She knew this role too well. The silent wife, smiling when expected, making sure everything ran smoothly so her husband could shine. It was the unspoken agreement of their marriage, though no one had ever actually signed it. She moved about the yard, setting the table, slicing vegetables, marinating meat. The smell of onions stung her eyes. But maybe that was better than letting the sting of his words show. Sergei didn't notice. He never noticed. When he left to pick up his boss and his wife, the yard grew suddenly quiet. The silence pressed on Anna's chest. For a moment, she just stood still, hands resting on the table. Then, needing air, she walked to the gate. The late afternoon sun painted the grass gold. A warm breeze stirred the birch leaves. Standing there, staring out at the empty road, she felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time. Loneliness, raw and heavy. Not the kind of loneliness that comes from being alone, but the kind that comes from being unseen, even when someone is standing right beside you. Anna, my dear, what are you doing here all by yourself? She turned and saw Aunt Vera, the neighbor, a stout woman in her 60s with kind eyes and hands rough from years of gardening. Vera had always been a bit like a second mother to her, offering advice and kindness whenever they crossed paths. Oh, just waiting, Anna said softly, forcing a little smile. Vera studied her face. Waiting for what? Your Sergei? He's always running around with his work. And you? You're always quiet. Too quiet. Anna hesitated. Normally, she would brush the question aside, say something polite, change the subject. But today, something inside cracked. I don't know who I am anymore, she admitted, her voice trembling. Everything I do is for him, for our son, for the house. I cook, I clean, I smile when he tells me to. But me, I'm nowhere. It's like I disappeared. Vera sighed, her weathered face softening. My girl, listen to me. A woman is not a scarecrow to be placed at the gate for decoration. You are not just someone's shadow. You have a soul, a mind, a heart. If you bury yourself completely, one day there'll be nothing left to dig up. The words sank deep, sharper than Sergei's jokes had ever been, because they were true. Anna felt tears sting her eyes, but she blinked them away quickly. She didn't want pity. She just wanted to feel alive again. Vera placed a gentle hand on her arm. Don't forget, Anna, life passes quickly. Too quickly. Don't waste it standing silent in someone else's story. Anna nodded, unable to answer. But inside, something shifted. A tiny flame flickered to life, faint but real. For years, she had told herself this was just the way things were, that her happiness didn't matter as long as her family was fine. But now she wondered, what if she mattered too? As the sound of Sergei's car hummed in the distance, Anna straightened her cardigan and wiped her hands on her skirt. She would go back inside, play her role once more. But deep down, she knew something had changed. She wasn't ready to stay silent forever. And that thought alone gave her a strength she hadn't felt in years. By the time Sergei returned with his boss and the boss's wife, the sun was already dipping low, casting long golden shadows across the yard. The grill was ready, the table neatly arranged, and the smell of marinated meat hung in the air. Anna had done her part, as always. Sergei was glowing with pride as he led his guests into the yard. He shook hands firmly, laughed loudly, and immediately slipped into the role of the perfect host. Here we are, my friends. Countryside, fresh air, and the best barbecue you'll ever taste. The boss, a heavy-set man with a booming voice, clapped him on the shoulder. Ah, Sergei, I like a man who knows how to live. Let's see what you've got. Anna stayed a little in the background, as expected. She poured drinks, passed plates, and tried to remain invisible. She had perfected this skill, being present but unnoticed, useful but silent. Sergei thrived in the spotlight. He cracked jokes, raised toasts, and spoke passionately about the company's future. He painted himself as ambitious, loyal, and ready for bigger responsibilities. Every gesture, every word was carefully chosen. But as the men laughed by the grill, the boss's wife turned her gaze toward Anna. She was elegant, dressed in a simple but tasteful linen dress, her hair pinned neatly back. There was a warmth in her eyes that made Anna feel suddenly exposed. "You must be Anna," the woman said, walking over with a smile. Anna blinked, a little startled. "Yes, that's me." "You know," the woman continued, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret, "you have such kind eyes. Your husband has been talking all evening about work, but not once about you." "What do you do?" Anna hesitated. She wasn't used to people asking. Most of the time, people passed her by, assuming her life began and ended in the kitchen. She almost said nothing much, but then something inside her pushed back. "I work at the library," she said quietly. "I love books. I've been there for years." The woman's face lit up. "The library? Oh, how wonderful. Do you know how lucky you are? Surrounded by stories, by silence, by that smell of old pages. My life is endless meetings, reports, and schedules. I'd give so much just to spend a single day in your shoes." Anna felt her cheeks warm. No one had ever said that to her before. She looked down, embarrassed, but also strangely pleased. "It's nothing special," she murmured. "Just helping people find the books they need." The woman shook her head. "No, Anna, that's not nothing. That's giving people pieces of other worlds, letting them escape for a while. That's magic." Anna laughed softly, and for the first time that day, it was a genuine laugh. Their conversation flowed easily. They spoke about favorite books, about childhood memories of reading under blankets with flashlights, about how stories had shaped them. Anna's eyes sparkled as she spoke, something inside her waking up after being silent for so long. From across the yard, Sergei noticed. He had been flipping meat on the grill, laughing at his boss's jokes, but now he watched with narrowing eyes. His boss's wife and Anna were sitting close together, heads bent, smiling like old friends. He couldn't remember the last time he had seen his wife smile like that. "Everything all right?" he called, trying to sound casual. "Yes, everything's fine," the boss's wife answered cheerfully. "We were just talking about books. Did you know, Sergei, that your wife has the most beautiful way of describing things? She made me want to go back to a library myself." Sergei forced a laugh. "Ah, yes. Anna loves her books. But you know, books don't bring promotions." The woman's smile faded slightly. She glanced at Anna, then back at Sergei. "Promotions are not the only thing in life." The words hung in the air, sharp as glass. Sergei chuckled awkwardly and went back to the grill. But inside, unease twisted in his stomach. Later, as they sat down to eat, the conversation once again shifted. Sergei was eager to impress, to keep the spotlight on himself. But the boss's wife kept turning back to Anna, asking her thoughts, her opinions, her stories. Anna felt nervous at first, but the more she spoke, the easier it became. She shared a story about an old man who came to the library every week, borrowing the same book just to feel less lonely. She spoke about a little boy who ran straight to the fairy tale shelf, his eyes shining with excitement. The boss's wife listened intently, nodding, sometimes laughing, sometimes even tearing up. "You see?" she said at one point, turning to her husband. "This is what life is about. Not just reports and promotions, but the little stories, the moments that make people feel alive." Her husband grunted, half listening as he reached for another skewer of meat. But Sergei's smile grew tight. Each compliment directed at Anna felt like a jab at his own pride. By the end of the evening, when the plates were cleared and the wine bottles emptied, the boss's wife stood up and said warmly, "Sergei, you are a very lucky man. Your wife is extraordinary. Honestly, I think she's far more interesting than your work stories." Anna froze, unsure how to react. Sergei forced a wide smile, but his jaw clenched. The words echoed in his mind long after the laughter faded. He had wanted the evening to be about his ambitions, his future. But somehow it had become about her. About Anna, the woman he had always seen as background, suddenly shining in someone else's eyes. And that thought unsettled him more than he cared to admit. When the guests finally left, the yard was quiet again. The plates were stacked, the ashes in the grill smoldered, and the laughter that had filled the evening hung in the air like smoke. Anna moved slowly, gathering dishes, her hands tired but steady. Sergei stood by the doorway watching her. For once he didn't have another joke ready, no sharp remark on the tip of his tongue. Something about the evening had shaken him, though he couldn't quite put it into words. "Why did she say those things about you?" he asked finally, his voice softer than usual. "The boss's wife. Why did she keep saying how interesting you are?" Anna paused, the dishcloth in her hands. She looked at him for a long moment and then said quietly, "Maybe because she listened." Sergei frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she continued, "that usually no one listens. Not even you. I'm always here, doing everything that needs to be done, but I don't speak because no one cares to hear. Tonight I spoke, and someone cared." The words hit him harder than he expected. He opened his mouth to argue, but no sound came. Deep down, he knew she was right. For years, he had taken her presence for granted, never asking about her dreams, her thoughts, her feelings. She had been there, dependable, steady, and he had assumed that was enough. But tonight, for the first time, he had seen another version of her. A woman who laughed, who told stories, who lit up when she spoke about books and people. And he realized with a sick twist of guilt that he had never drawn that out of her. Anna turned back to the dishes, her voice calm but firm. I'm not a scarecrow, Sergei. I'm not something you put at the gate to impress your boss. I'm a person. I have a soul. And I don't want to disappear anymore. The silence that followed was heavy. Sergei sat down, running his hands over his face. He thought about all the years he had been chasing promotions, late nights at the office, endless stories about work. He had believed he was building a future for both of them. But somewhere along the way, he had forgotten to build anything with her. That night, when they finally went to bed, Sergei lay awake. Anna's words circled in his head, mingling with the boss's wife's compliments. Extraordinary. Far more interesting than your work stories. He had wanted recognition for himself, but instead, the light had fallen on Anna, and maybe, he thought, that was the recognition he had overlooked all along. The next morning, the air was crisp and cool. Anna was already up making tea. Sergei walked into the kitchen, unsure of what to say. He wasn't used to apologies. They stuck in his throat like thorns. But he tried anyway. Anna, he began slowly. Yesterday, I realized something. I've never really listened to you, and I should have. I want to change that. She looked at him, surprised. For a moment, she searched his face, trying to see if he was serious or if it was just another passing mood. But there was something different in his eyes. Not the usual arrogance, but a kind of vulnerability she hadn't seen in years. Change takes more than words, she said quietly. I know, he admitted, but maybe I can start small. You've been talking about that bookstore in town? Let's go there today. Together, pick out something for yourself. It was such a simple gesture, almost childish, yet it carried weight. Anna felt something stir in her chest, not forgiveness, not yet, but a flicker of hope. All right, she said. They went later that afternoon. Anna wandered among the shelves, touching the spines of books like old friends. Sergei walked beside her awkwardly, not quite knowing what to do, but trying. When she finally picked out a novel she had wanted for years, he paid without hesitation, handing it to her with a small, uncertain smile. On the way home, the silence between them felt different. Not heavy, not strained, but open, like the space before a new beginning. Anna knew their marriage still had wounds, and words alone wouldn't heal them. But she also knew something had shifted. For the first time in years, she had spoken her truth. And for the first time, Sergei had heard it. She wasn't a scarecrow anymore. She was a woman with dreams, with her own light. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to let that light shine.